Okay, Sally here, Max, he's excused, Elliot here, Jalen here, Nico not here, Val here, Tom here, Olivia here, Laurel, oh, she's excused, Moberly here, Rosie here, Jingo, yeah, he said he couldn't make it, and Dallas here. All right. Today I'm gonna talk about a little bit international bond market and Wednesday international equity markets. And starting next week, we'll kind of start talking about your country report. So we'll go back and talk about balance of payments and that kind of stuff. And you'll do a lot of group work anyway in the meantime. All right, international bond market. Now, in terms of, let's make a distinction between what we call foreign bonds and euro bonds. A foreign bond, think of a US company going to Germany, issuing a bond in Germany, but bond is denominated in euros, in that country's currency. If the bond is denominated in US dollar or in the currency of the issuer, that is called a euro bond. Again, the term euro has nothing to do with geography. A Japanese firm issuing a yen-denominated bond in the United States would be called a euro bond. Okay? So if a European firm issues a bond denominated in euro in the United States, that would be a European bond, euro bond. A European firm issuing a US dollar denominated bonds in the US, that's going to be a foreign bond. So those are the two differences. In terms of statistics, let me see. These are the statistics for domestic and international bonds. So roughly speaking, about 20% of bond issues are international. So they're issued in other countries. And the rest is pretty much domestic. So it's a pretty big chunk of the international bond market. Now, there is a difference between bearer bonds versus registered bonds. Who's going to tell me that difference? What do you think? If you're owning a registered bond and you lost it, I found it, I took it to bank, can I be paid? No, because registered bonds are, as the name suggests, registered to the owner. On the other hand, bearer bonds, all you have to do is have the document. There is no registration about who owns it, and there's a reason for that. It's basically getting around tax laws. So if I'm a US entity and I'm buying a euro bond, if it's a bearer bond, IRS has no information about that. But if it's a registered bond through my bank accounts, they actually have that information and I can be taxed on the income of that. And bearer bonds are also very attractive to criminal organizations because you don't have to declare you have them at all. So they're actually used quite a bit to launder money. The difference in terms of regulations, Foreign bonds have to meet security regulations of the country in which they are issued. Okay. So if you're issuing a bond in Germany, you have to satisfy German regulations. One thing about Eurobonds in the US, since foreign bonds have to bear a lot more regulations, people actually prefer the Eurobond market. So if you're going to raise dollars, it's a lot easier to do it in the Eurobond market than the US bond market. But one thing about Eurobond market, you cannot offer it to you cannot trade them in US, or US investors cannot trade them within the first 40-day restriction, so that they become seasoned. Then it's a secondary market transaction. One thing you can do to make it easier, usually the process for issuing a new bond is pretty involved. You can do what's called shelf registration. You can say, okay, I'm going to issue $5 billion worth of bonds. But you just get the approval, but you don't necessarily issue it then. It's on the shelf. Whenever you need it, you go to the shelf and you go ahead and place it. Sometimes, if you don't want to deal with the restrictions that involves overall market, the reason SEC has restrictions and regulations, they don't want the small investors to be taken advantage of. And presumably the so-called qualified institutional buyers, these people are in the business of finance, so they should know what they're getting into. Restrictions on them are a lot less. Instead of issuing a bond that is public, open to public, you can do what we call private placements. You basically find who's going to be buying these bonds ahead of time, and you issue to them. That way, you don't have to do all dog and pony show about information disclosures about the firm. Because sometimes the issuing firm doesn't want certain information to be public. Let's say I'm not a publicly traded firm. That means what I have to disclose to SEC other than bond issue is very limited. And if I do a public bond and issue a lot of detailed information, I may give information to my competitors. But instead of doing that, if I do a private placement, that also typically comes with non-disclosure agreements. So if I'm one of those qualified institutional buyers, I cannot disclose what the company discloses to me to third parties. So they can raise funds and keep their trade secrets if need be. Global bonds, they're basically, as far as the idea is concerned, is extension of the Eurobond. And when the Eurobonds first came out, the idea was US firms issuing US dollar denominated bonds in Europe typically, or in Japan, to raise money without necessarily meeting US regulations. But certain bond issues are so big, you just have to issue them in multiple countries at the same time. And they're typically denominated in US dollars. right? In terms of issues, you can have straightforward fixed rate bonds. Let's say $1,000 face value bond. It's a fixed rate 5% bond. Every year it's going to pay $50 as a coupon. They tend to be annual, but they could also be semi-annual. The floating rate notes, these are bonds where the interest payments are dependent upon index of interest rate. In the old days, before LIBOR was finished, it was typically LIBOR indexed. Now it could be indexed to, I don't know what it's going to be indexed. Market is still adjusting on that. But for example, 3-month T-bill rates, prime rates, or the Bloomberg index. And coupon payments on these are typically quarterly or semi-annual. Most common is quarterly. The convertible bonds are interesting. Anybody knows what a convertible bond is, or maybe? Do you have a guess what it could be? There is some info up there that can help you answer. Come on, guys, I don't want this to be a monologue. What do you think? I know you guys are not mute. If you were, I would have gotten a notice from ADA compliance people.